There is a door on the front of your house that you almost never use. It has the good lock, the wreath, the number. It's the door in the photograph when the house was listed for sale. And if you're like most people, the last time you walked through it was the day you moved in. You come in through the garage, through the side, through the kitchen. Every single day. This isn't laziness. It's a 150-year-old habit, and it started with a room behind that front door that families were terrified to use, a room so formal, so cold, and so associated with death that an editor of the most read magazine on earth spent 30 years trying to convince Americans to stop keeping it. By the end of this, you'll know exactly why your front door exists, why you don't use it, and what quietly replaced it. To understand the door, you have to understand what was waiting behind it. During the Victorian era, roughly 1837 to 1901, the parlour was the most important room in any respectable household. It sat directly behind the front door, furnished with the family's finest linens, their most treasured objects, and their most uncomfortable chairs. Having a parlour was proof of status. And families of modest means would spend a disproportionate share of their income decorating a room they barely entered, while neglecting the rooms where they actually lived. It was, by every account, a stiff and starchy affair. The doors stayed shut. Children were forbidden from going in. For most of the year it was the coldest room in the house, because families heated with coal fires and nobody was going to burn fuel warming a room that sat empty 6 days a week. The kitchen, meanwhile, was always warm. Always alive. That's where the family cooked, argued, washed, socialized, and in many working-class homes, slept. Sometimes the whole family lived in that one room, sometimes with lodgers. So already you have 2 rooms doing 2 jobs. 1 room for being seen in. 1 room for living in. And each one had its own door. But there was something else about the parlour. Something that explains why it was treated less like furniture and more like a shrine. Before the mid-1800s, when someone in the family died, the body was laid out in the front room to receive final respects. Wakes and funerals happened right there, behind the formal front door, in the very chairs guests would be sitting in the following Sunday. The room earned a name for it. The death room. Think about what that does to a house. The most beautiful room you own is also the room where your mother was laid out. You keep it perfect. You keep it closed. And you certainly don't let the children play in it. This started to shift after 1865, when Abraham Lincoln's embalmed body helped popularize professional funeral services. By 1882 the National Funeral Directors Association had formed. Death slowly moved out of the house and into dedicated funeral parlours, and by the end of the First World War, nearly all funerals and wakes were held at professional establishments. The room was free. The body was gone. But the habit stayed. Because habits outlive the reasons for them, and that's the whole story of the front door. Which brings us to a Dutch-born editor named Edward Bok. Bok ran the Ladies' Home Journal for 30 years, from 1889 to 1919. Under him, circulation exploded, roughly 700,000 subscribers in 1892, 1.75 million by 1910, the largest circulation of any magazine in the world. When Bok told American women how a home should work, American homes changed. And Bok hated the parlour. He thought it was absurd to build and furnish an expensive room that a family almost never entered. Architectural historian Elizabeth Cromley later described how the parlour was perceived, dark, gloomy, and oppressive. So Bok campaigned, for years, to get Americans to call it, and treat it as, a living room. A room for the living. Use daily. Not preserved for guests and funerals. Now, one correction to a story you'll see everywhere, Bok did not invent the phrase. Living room was already in use as far back as 1825. What Bok did was spend 3 decades shaming Americans out of a room they were wasting. In November 1900, he put it in print. He described the folly of setting aside a room you rarely use, then filling it with, and I'm quoting him here, puny gilt chairs upon which no one dares to sit, Impossible paintings in massive gold frame, and then the line that ends the argument. We have what is called a drawing room. Just whom or what it draws I have never been able to see, unless it draws attention to too much money and no taste. Gilt chairs nobody dares to sit on. Written in 1900. You already know that room. Theodore Roosevelt is said to have remarked that Bok was the only man he'd ever heard of who changed, for the better, the architecture of an entire nation. But here's what Bok couldn't change. He could rename the room. He could not change which door people walked through. Because a house didn't have one entrance. It had a ranking system. The front door was for guests. Formal visits, the minister, the doctor, the stranger. A side door, often opening into a dining room or sitting room, was for the family, every day. And the rear door was for servants. In grander homes the kitchen had its own separate exit entirely, so staff, deliveries, and sometimes even the household's own children never had to pass through the main entrance. The kitchen was pushed to the courtyard or the north side, so cooking smells and noise wouldn't reach the people being impressed at the front. Every person who approached that house was being sorted before they knocked. And people knew exactly where they stood. Here's how one person remembered their grandmother's house. Everyone came to the back door, then virtually straight into the kitchen. All very comfortable and informal. When we heard the clink of the little side gate, we knew it was a welcome visitor. The only people who ever came to the front door were strangers. That's the whole thing in one sentence. The front door meant formality. The back door meant belonging. Then came the change that did more to American homes than any magazine editor ever could. The war ended, and millions of veterans needed houses. In 1947, Levitt and Sons began building on 7 square miles of Nassau County, 30 miles east of Manhattan, at a rate of 150 houses a week. At their peak they were finishing 30 houses a day. By 1951 they had produced 17,447 homes, and 3 more Levittowns followed in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Puerto Rico. Historian Kenneth Jackson called them the family with the greatest impact on post-war housing in America, the builders who turned the cottage industry into a manufacturing process. These were 4-room, look-alike houses built for affordability. And they came with something that would quietly kill the front door. A garage. By 1960, roughly 3/4 of American families owned a car, up from just over half a decade earlier. And the overwhelming majority of new home construction was suburban. The sequence of arriving home changed completely. You didn't walk up a path anymore. You drove. You pulled in. And you stepped out of the car directly into the side of your own house, into a hallway, or straight into the kitchen. The front door didn't get removed. It got demoted. It became something you looked at from the street. And then the kitchen did something remarkable. It started absorbing every other room. The first open floor plans appeared in the 1950s, connecting the dining area to the living space, though the kitchen itself was still kept out of sight of guests. But the walls kept coming down. By the 1990s open plan was the dominant style in new construction. The island arrived as a casual meeting point for conversation, homework, and snacking. As houses grew past 2,000 square feet in the 80s and 90s, a new room appeared that would have baffled the Victorians entirely, the mudroom. It began on 19th-century farms, where people needed somewhere to pull off work boots. It became a suburban standard in the 1980s, a buffer between the garage and the kitchen, where bags drop and coats hang. Look at what that actually is. It's a place to compose yourself before entering the house. It's a vestibule. The Victorians had one behind the front door. We rebuilt it beside the garage. And the loop closes completely in new luxury construction, where homes are now built with 2 kitchens, a showpiece kitchen for gathering, and a hidden working kitchen for the mess. Agents call it the prep kitchen, the messy kitchen, or, reaching back 150 years, the scullery. The exact room the Victorians hid at the back of the house has returned. As a premium feature. The kitchen didn't just replace the parlor. It took the living room's purpose, the dining room's social role, and the front door's job as the real entrance to the home. And now the granite and the steel and the oversized island do exactly what the parlor's linens and china once did, they tell visitors what kind of family lives here. The front door is still there. Building codes require it. In millions of homes it holds a number, a wreath, and nothing else. The real threshold, where the shoes pile up, the keys land, and the dog comes bounding through, is around the side, leading into the warmest, busiest room in the house. Just like it always was. Even when we pretended otherwise. The sofa nobody sat on. The piano nobody played. The door nobody opened. The old family home keeps giving up the same secret: it was never designed for living in. It was designed for being seen in.